Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing. He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
How you like that, boy?
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. Welcome to the show. You know what time it is? Time for a good show. Welcome. So we're gonna have a fun show today. We've got some interesting stuff. We got a lot of great stories. We got Joe Biden and Peter Doocy. That's a fun one. That's gonna be hilarious. Also, okay, why don't I just not spoil it for y'all and get to it when we do. But first, more stuff. We've got the insane anti-vax rallies from over the weekend. One of them, we have the Republican Party's newest favorite Democrat. We have, of course, a very interesting study on how turns out giving money to poor people actually helps poor people. Weird. Fun. So we'll do that. Let's see. We also have, we have corporations. In this story still blows my mind. It's very, very difficult for me to wrap my head around this. But yet, there is a company that is not letting their workers that have quit start their new jobs. I mean, it's just one of the most insane stories here. A judge. And so I've got the details on that. That's insanity. And then, of course, conservatives pro-forced marriage. Great. So fun stuff as always. All right, so now let's get into it here. Before I do, I just want to thank John Venn Diagram of Desire over on Twitch for resubbing for a month of Tier 1. Appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. Here's to 16 months. Keep bringing the heat, Acid Dragon. Well, I will continue. All right. I'm worried about the situation in Ukraine. What do you guys think? Look, I don't know too much about the situation right now. And so I can't really give you like expert foreign policy analysis. Let me just say that I'm against war, and I am concerned whenever the U.S. corporate media starts beating the war drums. And so as far as being concerned, I'm always concerned that, you know, there are forces that be that will try to or I should say forces at work, that will try to get us into another, I wouldn't say like direct war with Russia because that'd be ridiculous, but proxy wars, definitely something that I could see possibly happening. And so, that's my very unnuanced and unresearched read of the situation. And let's hope that we don't go in that direction. Everybody pushing for war, let's just say that I disagree with getting into an armed conflict with any other country because we happen to be at war with already everybody. All right, so now, anyway, let's get to the stories here. Let's do it. Yesterday, President Joe Biden was caught on a hot mic calling a Fox News reporter dumb.
Will you take questions on inflation then?
Let's do it. Thank you. Thank you all.
Do you think inflation is a political liability?
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
Okay, that's funny. Come on, that's funny. For one, it's a dumb question. Do you think inflation is going to help your re-election chances or going to help your political chances in the midterms? No, what kind of question is that? That's a stupid question. What's wrong with you? Of course it doesn't help. What is wrong with you? And look, here's the thing. Everybody's hitting him over that. Obviously, Fox News, I mean, look, Fox News, before that question, which, by the way, they have immediately made that like the number one thing. Oh, I can't believe he's going after reporters like that. Oh, my God. Oh. But before that, they were constantly hitting him on, oh, inflation, Bidenflation. Like, it's trending on Twitter. Bidenflation. Biden is the sole, perpetrator of the reason, and the reason that we have so much inflation. No. Now, here's the thing, though. I don't have any problem with Fox News using that as a political, talking point. It's not true. It's factually inaccurate. But hey, if you want to use that, go ahead and use that. That's fine. That's criticism. That's commentary, whatever. Let me just say that, again, it's not the fault of the president when it comes to inflation. It doesn't matter what party it comes from. It doesn't matter if it happened under Donald Trump or George W. Bush or Obama or Joe Biden. It's not necessarily their fault. There's a combination of different factors here that come into play when it comes to inflation. For example, the markets. Again, corporate greed. In this case, definitely corporate greed. Because here you have companies that receive billions of dollars in taxpayer money from these bailouts, from these corporate bills that were there to help them during the coronavirus pandemic, right? And so now these companies, they got billions of dollars, and a lot of them bought back their own stocks and ended up keeping the money anyway. Now, some of them had to return the money, but a lot of them ended up keeping the money anyway. And that's after, again, juicing their own stock portfolios and their own returns. And so, all right, gigantic amounts of corporate welfare, okay? Now, that said, they raise their prices. Are there supply chain concerns that might cause a little bit of inflation? Yes, that's true. There are supply chain issues, and that is something that Biden can do something about and has actually tried to do something about. So fair enough, right? So they're actually trying to make an effort to this. Nonetheless, you also have companies that are taking advantage of the situation and raising prices far more than they would, and far more than the costs that they had incurred from some of these, natural issues that would cause price increases for them to go up. And so you understand, right? They basically, and it's gotten so bad that they have wiped out what modest wage increases happened over the last few years. And so Americans are actually worse off now as a result of all this corporate greed than they were during the Trump administration. Fascinating how that works out, right? And so now, understandably, Fox News is going to jump all over it, and that's going to play very badly with people in the midterms. Okay, so again, if you want to point that out, that's fair. Totally fair. Now, let's get to the controversy. There's controversy here. So now, was President Biden, was he wrong for saying that? Was he unduly, unfairly attacking members of the press? Was he doing exactly what Donald Trump had done? Well, there are some members of the press that certainly believe so. In fact, here's CNN's Brian Stelter.
You see the smile on Biden's face. I don't think he's surprised this was caught on mic. I think he knows what he was doing. But no matter who the president is, whether it was Donald Trump saying Chuck Todd was an SOB, or whether it's President Biden saying Peter Doocy is an SOB, it's wrong no matter what. The easiest thing to do in life is to be consistent, regardless of party, regardless of president, and just recognize when something is wrong. Recognize that the president should be held to the highest standards. And so in this case, Biden was out of line. I think he knew it because he called Doocy right away to say sorry and try to put it as water under the bridge. It's also not the biggest story in the world, though, right? That's why I'm glad you didn't lead with it. It's not the most important thing in the world. We know Fox is going to milk it as if it is the most important thing in the world. It's one of these minor, interesting moments that shows how the president really feels.
Now, look, is Fox News milking it? Yes. No, they absolutely are. Of course they are. But look, I got 2 points here. Is it the most important thing in the world? No, obviously not. Of course not. But number 2, I disagree with Brian Stelter in the fact that, that's wrong. And it's just like what Trump was doing. And we're just being consistent here. No, this is CNN being infuriatingly neutral for neutrality's sake. Oh, everything's the same. Donald Trump calls the press the Lügenpresse, which means lying press in German. It's what the Nazis used to say. And Biden just happened to call a Fox News reporter that yelled out an incredibly stupid question a dumbass, essentially. Or a dumb son of a bitch. That's what it was. No, come on. That's not the same. That's not comparable to what Donald Trump had said. But here's the thing. So, as so many people have already pointed out, Joe Biden isn't anywhere near as hostile to the press as Donald Trump has been. Biden, for example, hasn't tried to ban Fox News from the press room. He hasn't banned anyone from the press room. I believe you still have, Newsmax reporters that are still there? What's Newsmax doing in the room? I mean, come on. Come on. All right, so now, that said, he also doesn't call any outlet fake news, especially Fox News or Newsmax or OAN. Doesn't call the press the enemy of the people. Doesn't encourage violence against the so-called fake news media, which, by the way, has encouraged conservative supporters to also do violence against the media. In fact, let me give you some statistic here. This is according to Reporters Without Borders. During the George Floyd protests alone, there were 68 different incidents documented of attacks by police and what some would consider to be protesters. Maybe they were protesters, maybe they were opportunists, or maybe they were even, again, right-wingers that were there, counter-protesters. But all of them went against journalists that were covering the protests. They'd been shot by rubber bullets by police, pepper balls. They'd been exposed to tear gas, pepper spray, beaten, threatened, intimidated, had their news vehicles vandalized when they were simply reporting on the job. So, look, Trump helped encourage some of that and allowed the police to do that. And so, again, there are numerous examples of Trump trying to make an enemy out of the reporters. But not just reporters, by the way. Trump was also against the entire idea of the free press. Way, way different than what we have here. Way, way different. Okay? In fact, calling one reporter out for a stupid, dumb question is not the same thing as going after the entire idea of a free press and trying to clamp down on it. So now you can tell that it's not the same, and not even Peter Doocy believes that it's the same, despite, of course, Fox News flipping out over it. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to Doocy's own reaction to this. Here's what he said on Hannity's show.
Within about an hour of that exchange, he called my cell phone And he said, it's nothing personal, pal. And we went back and forth, and we were talking about just kind of moving forward. And I made sure to tell him that I'm always going to try to ask something different than what everybody else is asking. And he said, you've got to. He cleared the air, and I appreciated it. We had a nice call.
That's not an answer. Did he apologize? That doesn't sound like an apology.
He said it's nothing personal, pal. And I told him that I appreciated him reaching out. Hey, Sean, the world is on the brink of like World War III right now
I get
with all this stuff going on. I appreciate that the president took a couple minutes out this evening while he was still at the desk to give me a call and clear the air.
At least he called you pal.
But you know what? I don't need anybody to apologize to me. He can call me whatever he wants.
Well, I mean, there it is. Now, look, so again, other Fox News hosts are freaking out over this. And so is corporate media. They all need to back off. Back off a little bit. All right. Stop doing comparisons to Donald Trump and his attacks in the press, which are actually bad. And again, let me just ask this question and pose this, right? Who hasn't, in their dealings with Fox News, wanted to call one of their reporters or hosts dumb? A lot of us probably. Come on. Be honest. Yeah. Again, you know what? I got to give Doocy a little bit of credit. Again, he may be a dumbass, but no, he wasn't offended by this. He was just like, I don't know, I'm trying to yell out questions, and I yelled the stupidest question that I can. And then, then he answered it by calling me dumb. Fair enough. All right. Moving on. Let's go to the next story. This is sure to upset some people, but I don't care. How does Biden have Doocy's cell phone number? Look, that's a good question. Well, first of all, I guess he's the president of the United States, so I guess you can, if he asks for your cell phone number, you're going to say no? I mean, if you're in the press, you probably wouldn't, honestly. So he can probably have anybody's phone number if they want. But, you know, that also is a little bit of a problem because you see how tightly the press pool is with politicians and how they don't really, you know, I mean, when it comes to real things, not like these tiny little controversies, the press, unfortunately, tends to take the side and be more stenographers of the government than anything. And that's kind of sad. But anyway, that said, anti-vaxxers, let's do it. Hello, NSA, get me Doocy, Peter Doocy. Oh, yeah, that would probably work too. I didn't think about that. All right. On Sunday, thousands of protesters from across the country went to Washington, D.C. for a rally against so-called vaccine mandates. So now I say so-called vaccine mandates because really a lot of them seem to be more just anti-vax than anti-mandate. But for them, it's more of a branding issue, I believe. So now, some details here from the Washington Post. Among the 25,000 who went to the massless, largely unvaxxed rally were the Proud Boys. Great company already. You also have Robert Malone, who claims to have single-handedly come up with the mRNA technology himself used in the vaccine. TV producer Del Bigtree, the CEO of anti-vax group Informed Consent Action Network, and members of the public employee associations like the Medical Freedom and the DC Firefighters Bodily Autonomy Affirmation Group. Great. Fun times. So now, the rally organizer was quick to tell the Washington Post, this is Matt Toon, saying, hey, look, I just want to change the current narrative. I just want people to stop saying that we're a bunch of weirdos and freaks that don't care about humanity. That's not true at all. Well, you have an interesting way of showing that when you go into a rally and spread COVID. These are essentially super spreader rallies. is what they are. But as far as the weirdos, right? Well, I mean, there's some people there that seem to be saying some pretty weird things. And let me show you an example. This is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Even in Hitler's Germany, you could cross the Alps into Switzerland. You can hide in an attic like Anne Frank did. I visited in 1962 East Germany with my father and met people who had climbed the wall and escaped. So it was possible. Many died doing it, but it was possible. Today, the mechanisms are being put in place that will make it so none of us can run and none of us can hide. Within 5 years, we're going to see 415,000 low-orbit satellites. Bill Gates says his 65,000 satellites alone will be able to look at every square inch of the planet 24 hours a day. They're putting in 5G to harvest our data and control our behavior. Digital currency that will allow them to punish us from a distance and cut off our food supply. Vaccine passports.
Is that dude okay? Like, he sounds, no, I mean, from a physical perspective, he sounds terrible. He sounds terrible. Like, I'm saying maybe he's like, maybe he might have COVID. Either that or he's like really shaky and emotional. I don't know what's going on. You know, I feel bad for the guy. But like at the same time, he's out here making some Holocaust comparisons. Dude, what? And by the way, this is for a vaccine that has saved millions of people's lives. Look, 800,000, over 800,000 Americans died from the virus, not from the vaccine. Again, you can tell VAERS anything, right? And they always go to the vaccine adverse effect reporting system, right? Which is the self-reporting system. So I could call up VAERS right now and be like, oh, you know what? The vaccine turned me into a very pretty princess. And I now have very long hair and frilly dresses. Nothing wrong with that, except for the fact that it's just patently untrue. Okay. Oh, the guy has a neurological disease? Well then, okay. Well, there you go. Now I know the answer, because I had no idea. And so, okay. Wow. But he's always sounded like that. Okay. I apologize for that then. I didn't realize that there was an actual neurological issue as to why he sounded like that. Okay, I got you. Again, he didn't sound very good. And so I was actually literally concerned about his health. But anyway, so that said, right, it doesn't mean any of the stuff that he said was actually correct. A lot of the stuff that he said was incorrect. And so, no, that's not good. None of it makes any sense. The vaccine is there to help keep people healthy and their communities healthy from going down the virus. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, that you can't get the virus when you've already been vaccinated. Of course you can. Now, the thing is that when you do get the virus, or if you get the virus and you've already been vaccinated, you have a much, much better chance of being able to survive it and not get into the hospital. And so, now, that's the thing, right? But as far as like, oh, well, they're taking our data and they're selling it or whatever, well, corporations are doing that. Corporations are taking our personal data because we're giving them personal data, right? And they use it and guess what? They sell it off to third parties or use it to sell you ads. It's not like, oh, the big government, right? No, or anything like that. No, it's capitalism that's the problem, not government totalitarianism. But here's what Toon added. The goal is to show a unified front of bringing people together. Vaccinated, unvaccinated, Democrats, Republicans, all together in solidarity. I don't think that went as well as planned, as the vast majority of people who showed up happened to mostly be Trump people. Okay? And so, as Salon explains, some were white-haired, others were being pushed in strollers. Most were white and many wore gear with slogans supporting former President Donald Trump. A group of men in front of a cart with the "Don't Tread on Me" flag start a chant of "Let's go Brandon" and "Fuck Joe Biden." To cheers, the few who wore masks risked the tirades of a man screaming, "Take those masks off," and it's all a lie. Interesting. The marchers also carried posters and flags that included statements such as "Vaccines are mass kill bioweapons," which isn't true, and "Trump won," also not true. And a bus was parked beside the Washington Monument, wrapped in arrest or exile signs displaying pictures of Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, and Jacob Rothschild. Interesting. Now, one speaker also later on had recited debunked claims linking a vaccine to autism. So now, again, this is what you're seeing here. So this is not really necessarily a bipartisan, oh, we're going to get everybody together to reject the mandates. No, this is mostly right-wing reactionaries, or, and not all right-wing reactionaries, but also you have anti-establishment people in there as well. Again, someone claimed to be on the left also went. And I'm not saying that these people aren't anti-establishment. I just wouldn't consider them all that left. And so, but here's the thing though. Now, if they're, legitimately anti-establishment, okay, that's fine. I agree with you. I'm anti-establishment too. I don't like the establishment. That's just something that we have in common. However, and let me point this out because it's very important, being anti-establishment is not a left thing. It's not a right-wing thing either. What it is that it's basically you don't like the things that are happening right now. And there's a lot of people that don't like things that are happening right now. We're unhappy at the status quo. And I think you can describe most of the United States as unhappy with the status quo, or at least some part of the establishment that people are angry at, and they want change. Now, the thing is, the goals of many of these marchers, people that go to these rallies and call themselves anti-establishment, I don't share the same goals, right? That's why you're not going to see me boost or work with these people. Because, look, what I'm getting at is that it's not enough to be anti-establishment. That's really easy. It's easy to be angry with the status quo. And we're all mad and we want it to change. But what matters to me more, or the most, is what you want to build afterwards. Say we're victorious, right? And we toppled the establishment through nonviolent means, for example. Be it general strike or political action or combination thereof. Okay, so now, what do you want to build afterwards? Now, I mentioned nonviolent, right? Because I'm never going to support a group or a movement that uses violence as an answer to enact their goals. I think that's a bad thing. I want to protect people. I want to save people's lives. I want to help people, right? So my biggest problem, for example, with the current establishment is that it puts profit over people. We don't have guaranteed health care in this country. Wealthiest country on earth. No guaranteed health care. No Medicare for all. No single-payer system. That's disastrous. We have endless wars. We have starvation wages for workers. We have massive exploitation of workers here and overseas. You have environmental destruction and degradation that is being championed by this system. I want to end those things. I want to replace them with a system that does the opposite of those things, that actually helps people, that puts people over profit, that guarantees the basics of survival for every single man, woman, and child, and ensures that everybody has a decent quality of life, the tools for survival, along with as well as freedom and self-determination to be able to do better for themselves. I want a society that cares about the weakest among us and lifts them up, but doesn't lift them above others. You know what I'm saying? And so if you're not with me in fighting for those things, if you're fighting to stop people from getting health care or medical treatments and preventing people by lying to them about life-saving medical procedures or treatments or vaccines, right? Things that have been proven to save people's lives, and again, instead, hawking like nonsense, fake cures that don't actually do anything, then I'm not really interested. If you're trying to do some weirdo libertarian feudalistic society where nobody except for the rich can afford medicine and everybody else is out for themselves like Mad Max but with way more guns, then I'm not interested. I'm not interested at all in what you're doing. I'm not interested in this wacko anti-vax, anti-5G nonsense and their conspiracy theories. Just not interested. And so, again, you know, just being anti-establishment is just not good enough. You've got to actually want to fight for a better future than what we have. And one that puts people over everything else. Okay. Moving on. Go to Kyrsten Sinema. And somebody said that I'm spouting sock dem nonsense, right? The big problem with sock dem countries is the exploitation of the third world. Did you not hear me when I said that? I said a world without exploitation. No exploitation of the working class in this country, as well as other people in other countries. So just being clear about that. And that's not something that's currently done in any of the SOCDEM countries. Hey, mods, don't worry about it. You know, like this is, I don't mind that somebody has a disagreement and does a, hey, call out or anything like that. No, it's basically not even a call out. It's just to clarify my point a little bit better, because sometimes some of these things can be unclear. And so it's totally fine. Again, I'm absolutely perfectly fine with that kind of challenge and that kind of question. Like, hey, wait a minute, this sounds like this. Are you for exploitation or against exploitation? Well, I just said that I'm against exploitation of any type. And I call it out whenever I see it. Okay. And again, I'm glad I'm also glad that people said something about RFK Jr. I had no idea that he had a medical issue, or I wouldn't have even brought it up. And so thank you for that. I appreciate that because I didn't know. So it's good to know. I actually thought that he might have had COVID. I'm cool with social democracy as a transitory system towards socialism. Well, there you go. Do I think that Slovenia funds their welfare system? I don't know enough about Slovenia, so I can't really tell you, or can't really opine on that without enough knowledge. So we'll come back. All right. Anyway, let's move on. Let's go to Sinema. I just gave it away, didn't I? Okay. Anyway. The GOP's newest rising star is someone you might not think. Is it Josh Hawley or Madison Cawthorn? Is it somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert? No. It's Kyrsten Sinema. Because of course. Now, the Democrat from Arizona, who recently joined in with Republicans as well as Joe Manchin in order to block Joe Biden's social spending bill, as well as a voting rights bill, and changes to the filibuster to make sure that nothing else happens, that Biden's presidency is essentially over. Well, this, of course, has made her incredibly popular with conservative voters. In fact, we have two Republicans kind of gushing over her a little bit. Let's take a look.
What is your opinion about Senator Sinema?
I'm actually very impressed.
I'm happy to hear or have a senator who thinks for themselves, for the people. I don't think either party should have the ability to destroy the filibuster rules that have worked for years when one party's empowering, the other party's not. I love the checks and balances in the United States, and I think she's done a great job. I did not vote for her, but I admire her and probably would vote for her in the next election.
I love her.
Really?
Yeah. She stands up for what's right for the people, and she's not playing politics where she just goes by the party.
Do you like her enough, do you think, to vote for her?
Yeah, I'd vote for it.
Really?
I didn't vote for her last time
Yeah.
either, but I would do it this time for sure.
The amount of propaganda that these people have swallowed is astounding. Astounding. Again, and I'm not surprised. These are Republican voters. Again, they all were like, oh, yeah, of course, I didn't vote for Sinema, but I will next time. She's great. Oh, I love her. But so let me get to the details. Let me break down some untruths that I hear. So now, look. The filibuster, it's a cherished institution. No, it's not. It's not even in the Constitution, honestly. What this is that it's a relic of slavery. And aside from that, it's actually nothing more than a procedural tactic used to basically delay, hinder, block anything. A proposed bill. And they use, and this is according to the definition of the filibuster, through prolonged, irrelevant, and procrastinating speeches on the floor of the House, Senate, or other legislative body. So this guy's like, oh, the filibuster. Yes, it has worked for years. Well, I mean, it has worked to block any progress in the United States. Of course. And by the way, what they are doing is not even an actual filibuster. Again, you're supposed to have prolonged, irrelevant, and procrastinating speeches. They're not even doing that. They're not even doing that. Because at some point, that is supposed to end in a vote. But it never does. It never does when Republicans obstruct. Gee, I wonder why. Could it be that they don't want to be on the record for blocking popular policies from being implemented? It could be. Now, here's the thing. Polls for left-leaning organizations have showed that anywhere from 56 to 65% of likely Arizona voters supported Biden's legislation, specifically the $3.5 trillion version of the legislation, whose components generally poll well with voters across the country, both Republican and Democratic voters, as well as, of course, independent voters. In fact, among Democrats, those components poll about 95% popularity. More than half of all independent voters in the state also said that they support it as well. But of course, Sinema's blocking that. So to say that Sinema is on the side of the people when she blocks incredibly popular policy, it's ridiculous. No, she is actively on the side of the corporate donors. And the corporate donors, by the way, have rewarded her very handsomely. In fact, the Chamber of Commerce, just in the first quarter of 2021, gave $17,000 to Manchin, Sinema, and the 9 other members of the House who went after and tried to stop the $3.5 trillion Build Back Better Biden agenda. Because of course they did. And again, that's in these donations, direct result of obstruction. So again, hey, we're going to give you money, you're going to be a bitch, and you're going to block everything that we don't like. We don't like human infrastructure. We don't like social spending. We love the bipartisan infrastructure bill. That's why we got it passed. We love that. Because you know why? It gave most of the money to us. And that's it. All that money, or the gigantic lion's share of that money, went to these companies in contracts. But when it comes to child care, tax credits, the expansion of Medicare, well, of course these companies They don't like that at all. They don't like that at all. They spit on it. Get that out of here. Get out of my face. Hey, Manchin and Sinema, we give you the money. Go and kill the bill. And they said, oh, yes, sir. We will do, sir. Thank you, sir. That's how it works. I hate this media narrative. And you see it all over corporate media. And you hear it from Republicans all the time now. That, oh, no, these are mavericks. They're bucking the party. And they're protecting tradition. And they're working on getting real solutions. Doing bipartisanship. Real bipartisanship. No, bipartisanship in today's country, in today's United States Senate, means giving corporations everything. Just about everything. Because they work for their corporate masters. But you have the media, as I said, the goddamn corporate media that is spreading bullshit to the people and getting them, and you saw this, to actively cheer when Republicans stop anything that might actually improve the material conditions in your life. These two knuckleheads that he just talked to, prime example. And look, I'm sure they're probably nice people, but they bought it, hook, line, and sinker into the corporate propaganda, obviously because they vote for Republicans. Okay, but you know what's funny is that here's Kyrsten Sinema. She's a great example of what old grifters do. See, she started as, oh, look at me, I'm different. Girl power, girl boss, I'm Green Party, I'm progressive. And as soon as she gets elected, what does she do? She goes to the right. As soon as she gets into power and gets all the money, all the donations from corporations, and then decides she's going to build herself a brand, not among her voters, but among Republicans, who will now be her new voters. Well, I guess she's going to need it now. She's in trouble with Democrats in the state of Arizona. In fact, the Civics Tracking Poll found that Sinema has a favorability rating among Democrats of just 8%. Sad. And by the way, as a result, the Arizona Democratic Party issued a censure. Yikes. Look, let's be honest. I don't know. I don't think she's gonna last as a Democrat until 2024, her next election. But at some point, I believe, and maybe, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe I'll be wrong and she stays a Democrat. But I think at some point, I just have this feeling that she's going to go Dave Rubin. Why I left the left. And I think at that point, nobody at all will be surprised. Nobody. %8 too high? 8% of those people watch corporate media. All right. Speaking of helping regular people, let's go to the next story. And I'll try to get through these stories fast. Okay. A new study published earlier this week had proved the link between poverty and brain development. So now this study basically gave families of infants cash payments and found that it led to those children actually having higher cognitive skills later in life. So now the study is actually called the Baby's First Years Study. And what it did is that it enrolled 1,000 pairs of mothers and infants, generally low income, into a multi-year program in the metropolitan areas of New York, New Orleans, Omaha, and the Twin Cities. Now the mothers were divided into two different groups. 40% received a high cash gift of $333 a month. I wouldn't say that's great, but hey, look, they're low income. In fact, the average income reported here is about $20,000 a year. So that $333 a month, that'll go a long way. Now the remaining 60% were actually given a low cash gift of about $20. So, and that lasted for about several years of their kids' lives. So now all infants, by the way, who were involved in the study were considered to be generally healthy. And as I said, The average income for the family is about $20,000 a year, not very much. And also, the mothers and infants involved were members of minority groups, Black or Hispanic. So now the results of this, again, were incredibly interesting. So what they did is that they recorded the brain activity of 435 of the infants. Regardless of the size of the cash gift their mother received, researchers, when they did that, observed higher brain power in about 3 out of the 4 brainwaves in the high cash group. So now what does that mean? It basically suggests, simply, that children whose families had more income from these gifts, they actually dealt with less poverty and had better brain development. Interesting. So now the researchers acknowledged that family income had previously been associated with developmental differences in child brain development, but it had been unclear in the past whether it was directly associated with poverty or if it had more to do with factors that correlated with poverty. But they found that due to the randomized nature of the study, researchers concluded that giving money to families living in poverty resulted in a change in their infants' brain activity in a positive way. Is that not the most amazing, but also the most, yeah, no kidding, thing that you've ever seen? On the one hand, it's like, oh my God, giving them just $333 a month made their children's brains better when it comes to cognitive development. But also it's like, yeah, of course, you give poor people more money, and yes, they're going to do better. They're going to be less in poverty. And again, I think a lot of you may have heard of poverty brain. I myself suffer from poverty brain. And so it was one of those things where you grew up poor. Y'all know what I'm talking about if you've ever had it, where you're constantly concerned, constantly worried that you're going to be poor. That, you have to hold on. You don't know if the money is going to disappear. Even if you're doing well, there's always that doubt in the back of your mind. What if I'm poor tomorrow? What if it all goes away and it's all gone? And I need to be very, very concerned about how much I spend. Because you never know if it's just going to all disappear and you're going to go back to what you were living in, the way that you were living before. That's part of poverty brain. It's that constant anxiety. And so if you do something to alleviate, and by the way, that kind of anxiety is devastating to children. Not only that, but what's also devastating to children is not having enough to eat. Not having enough to eat, having to worry about, your parents being able to pay the bills. You're going to have heat, electricity. You're going to have, if your parents are going to fight over money, and then you're going to watch, and children, by the way, they internalize that, oh, they're fighting, it must be about me, I must be too expensive. That wreaks havoc on a child's brain. It really, really does. And so if you can alleviate those issues, then yeah, you're going to help a lot of children. Now, the study also noted that the patterns of neural activity, and this is also really important, observed in the high cash group were associated with higher language, cognitive, and social emotional scores later in life, setting them up for future success. Of course. Of course. Now, here's the thing. This doesn't mean that you need to be rich for this, right? No, of course not. It just means that we should, provide people with a basic level of living to which they can survive and not be in poverty. We should eliminate poverty from our society, and we can do that. And we can actually do that. So now there's a couple of caveats that are important to point out as well, but don't actually contradict the study. So the study was limited as a result of COVID-19. About what? I should say a certain number of parent-child groups were unable to be contacted, or they were unable to get the full amount of data on some of those mother-infant study groups. The pandemic made it very difficult to collect that data in person, again, because you had to make sure that you weren't spreading COVID around. So I get that. So that's the caveat, really. That's the only one. Now, that said, when you have 3 out of 4 kids show higher cognitive abilities from the high cash group, that's incredible. And even if that missing data only finds out, or even if you expand the study further to a larger sample size, and you end up with what, 50%? That's still half of all children in these families that you give additional money to that now have a better shot at life. Why wouldn't you do that? 50%, why wouldn't you do that? In fact, one co-author of the study, Lisa Janishin, a professor at Duke University's Stanford School of Public Policy, called the results of the study, quote unquote, unprecedented. The study's findings on infant brain activity are unprecedented and really speak to how anti-poverty policies, including the types of expanded child tax credits being debated in the US, which are, by the way, unfortunately no longer debated because it's over, we've lost, can and should be viewed as investments in children. And that's what it is. It's an investment in the next generation. It's the same thing as like investing in student education. I hear this all the time. Student loans, specifically for kids to go to college, right? Oh, yeah, well, you know, we shouldn't invest in that. They should be able to pay their own way. But you understand, like, why the taxpayer should help by making college free and forgiving student loan debt is because that's an investment into the future. Those kids without debt, college students, they're going to go on to now be able to buy homes, buy cars, invest in the economy, work the kind of jobs that they might want to work instead of have to work because of, you know, high student loan payments. Do art, music, or create a business that's successful in their small towns. All of that stuff, that's a benefit to society. It's a benefit. Why wouldn't you want to do that? But unfortunately, we know that there's people who don't. Conservatives, neoliberals. I mean, conservatives are a good example of loving the fetus up until it's born and then wanting absolutely nothing to do with it. Whereas neolibs, you know, they're more like, well, you know, we'll give them a little bit of help, but not that much. Means test, means test, means test. Again, conservatives and neoliberal corporatists, like Manchin and Sinema, they killed the child tax credit, which again helped to raise 50% of children that were living in poverty out of poverty. That's over with. It's gone. And it's not going to come back. No way. But hey, at least they can say that they protected their donors from possibly having to pay a tiny little bit in additional taxation in order to help kids have a better shot at life. Great job. Great job. When has the rich in government actually cared about the poor or children, unless it is to control a women's body? Yeah, that's the unfortunate truth that we have now. All right, so I really want to do the job story. The judge blocks workers from leaving their job, but I think we'll do Daily Wire instead because it's quicker. So yeah, let's do the forced marriages. What a ridiculous story to end on, but we'll do it. Conservative host Matt Walsh has come out in favor of forced marriage.
Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum are arranged marriages. Instead of a boundless, never-ending buffet of options, a young person in a culture that practices arranged marriages will be assigned just one, and they don't even make the choice. Their families just pair them up and say, here you go. There's far less freedom and far less autonomy in a system of that sort, but it is without a doubt superior to our system. We would be happier. Every person in the dating scene right now would be happier if they were just matched up with someone against their will, actually.
No, it wouldn't. Nope, that would be a disaster. I would not be happier if my parents had chosen my wife. Or and of course my wife would not be happy if her parents chose her husband. That would be ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Hey, the whole idea of like, oh, hey, there's this person that you're going to have to spend your life with, and I'm going to choose it for you, and you're going to be happy with it. No. I mean, it's not even thinking of the fact that, like, what if you don't have anything in common? What if you don't get along? Hey, look, that's your problem. Really? Really? That doesn't sound like the recipe for happiness. That sounds miserable. Who wants to spend their life with somebody that they can't stand? Ridiculousness. Again, and I'm not saying, by the way, that doesn't happen now. It absolutely does, for sure. I mean, a lot of couples maybe made some bad decisions, but at least it was their decision. All right? At least it was their decision. Forcing people into a marriage is not the way to go. That's the wrong way to go. Now, the irony, of course, is that these same people are saying things like, I can't believe the liberals want to control my life. Why do they hate freedom? Dude, you're literally out here saying, freedom, choice. No, we don't want that. We don't want that at all. In fact, it'd be better if we had less freedom because, we could then have our parents or somebody just choose the person I'm going to marry. So now what's interesting too is that, I mean, what about gay people? What about trans people? What about non-binaries, asexual, bisexual, etc.? How'd they fare in this system that Matt Walsh dreams about? Well, knowing what I know about Matt Walsh is that he would only be in favor of heterosexual pairings. Because of course, right? So those people would be forced into the closet, which again, he has no problem with. That's where he wants them. And into heteronormative relationships. And once again, I can guarantee that that would not be a recipe for happiness for either for either of them in that, relationship. But here's the thing. We know who Matt Walsh is appealing to, especially frustrated young white conservative men. The involuntary celibate movement. The people who get mad that women might not want to date or have sex with them. And so they think, no. If we're to force them, that's the ticket. If we just force them into marriages, then I'll be happy and I'll have access now. And I could be pure because, I'm married now. That's Matt Walsh's audience. And just to kind of reinforce that, look, this is the narrative that they believe. And I'm going to show you another video here of how he explains dating, what dating is to him.
So the modern dating scene is what happens when every beggar becomes a chooser. Everyone is lonely and desperate for companionship, but the field is so flooded with options, there's such a surplus that you begin to feel like, kind of like I feel when I'm in the condiment aisle at Walmart trying to buy mustard. And there are 197 different types of mustard. And though all I want is just regular mustard, the overwhelming array of options paralyzes me. And I'm just standing there slack-jawed, questioning whether I should be settling for just regular mustard when I could be getting gourmet, Dijon, whole grain, honey French, yellow, spicy brown, white, yellow, German mustard instead. All of modern life is plagued by this problem. Everything is plentiful and can be obtained effortlessly and cheaply. But it's too plentiful and too effortless and too cheap.
Ironically, he just slammed capitalism. It's sort of a weird aside, but it's true. I can't believe it. We have so many choices and everything is so easy and cheap. But no, the comparison here, and he makes another ridiculous comparison like, did you know dating was like watching Netflix and you just can't find the right movie and so you just don't choose anything. What? I mean, again, you heard it here, folks. Choosing a life partner, according to Matt Walsh, is like choosing mustard. But wait, if you want yellow mustard, you just have yellow mustard right there. Go get the yellow mustard. But what if I want Dijon? I don't know, then date Dijon. I don't care. Just don't force people. Again, his position is, I want to, it's because I can't make a decision in what I want, then I want to force other people to get a yellow mustard. Bitch, maybe I want some German mustard. Maybe I want some fucking Dijon. Or maybe I don't like mustard at all. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. And again, considering his audience, he says, and this is what really gets to me too. Oh, it's so cheap. It's so easy. There's so many choices. The main problem with involuntary celibates is that for them, it's not cheap or easy. Because nobody wants to have sex with them. But again, this is also has the problem of treating his, treating women as objects to like ogle and haggle and purchase. You know what I'm saying? Just like you're at a grocery store, dating, just like a grocery store. Too many options, can't decide. So I'll just take your choice. And it's ironic because, again, this comes from the so-called conservative defenders of freedom and the family. Yes, we're going to support the family by forcing you to have a family of which you're incredibly unhappy with. Congratulations, well done. Matt Walsh. Everybody. All right, that's all I got today. Or at least that's all I got time for. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sign off. By the way, tomorrow, not having a stream. So I will not be here tomorrow, unfortunately. But later on, later on, there's insanity in the control room. I will be doing an offline, pre-recorded interview with Lance from the Surfs. We're going to be talking about his recent foray into a anti-vax rally in Canada. That should be fun. And also, I will be doing the workers not being allowed to leave their job story as well. We'll have those up on our YouTube channel tomorrow. And so that's going to be fun. But no live stream tomorrow. But we'll be back live here 4 p.m. on Thursday. So everybody, thank you so much. Like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. Super chats, let's go to those. Thank you, Mandy XX, for the follow. Appreciate that. Let's go here to the awkward. I don't know why I don't set this up ahead of time. I should do that, but ADHD brain. What are you going to do? We'll miss you. Well, I'll miss you as well. But I have some things I have to take care of tomorrow. And so I won't be able to go live. So let's see. Super chats here from today. Let's see. Dango Bango says, of course, the groups of people who viciously defend child marriages will also be overlapped with those who demand forced marriages. It's a giant circle. Yes, that is another great point that I should have mentioned, by the way, because, again, there's always this, like, I know what we're going to do, right? We're going to force marriage so that, and it always gets to the libertarian argument of, like, yeah, but what about the age of consent? We're going to do something about that. It's super creepy and weird, But yes, that's a great point. Also, Dango Bango says the war machine is so blind they're beating the drums for a land war in Russia during the winter. Where have you seen that before? That's another good point. Another good point. Apparently they didn't learn. But hey, the military-industrial complex, they never learn. Never learn. Right wingers pushing I'd rather my child die instead of getting the vax because there's a chance to get autism really shows they want to erase people who are neurodivergent off the earth. Yeah, Yeah, it's like they act like having autism is worse than death. That's horrible. No, that's horrible. No, of course not. No, again, if it came between, if I had a child, if it came between like having a child with autism and them dying of a disease that vaccine could have prevented, autism all the way. Of course. That shouldn't be a question. Why do people treat autism as if it's like, like, no, I'd rather have my child die. Like, that's horrible. You're not a good parent, in my opinion. Madi Darno says overpopulation depends on what you're dividing the number over. Current countries and borders are arbitrary. Take them away and we're golden. I mean, good luck in convincing other people to do that, but it would be nice to have a more unified society of humanity. All right, and finally, Daniel Bagel. And I saw this article you sent me earlier. Florida is banning the entire concept of gay. Don't say gay, because then it disappears. Oh, really? Oh, is that what happens? Is that what happens? Oh, okay, yeah. So if you just, and I swear I did a story like this before, not necessarily on the gay issue, but something about conservatives just ignoring something. Oh, homelessness, of course. If you just say no, Tucker Carlson, if you remember that segment, Tucker Carlson, well, if you just ignore them and tell them to get a job, then homelessness goes away. No, it doesn't. It's ridiculous. Ignoring things does not solve the problem. It makes the problem worse. Of course. So thank you for all those, by the way. Super chats. How does Biden have Doocy's cell phone number? I actually already answered that, but thank you, Jedi Dragon Protector, for the super chat. Thank you, everybody, for the super chats. Really, really appreciate them. Appreciate you all. Love you, and remember, change begins with you. You have a great night. We'll see you on Thursday.
There's insanity in the control room.
Mike Pounds.
Big, massive dumps.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.